artists are struggling with the monumental rise of AI-generated art. Part of this is the fear of losing job opportunities in an already undervalued field. There's also a sense of resentment at the idea that anybody able to type a prompt can now be considered an artist. But beneath these fears of being functionally replaced in the economy is a deeper sense of mourning. Many artists have spent years honing their technical skills, and in fact see the labor of image making as a significant emotional investment necessary for achieving the conceptual goals of their final piece. What artists are really mourning is the devaluation of labor. However, the quick rise of AI art doesn't really reveal anything new about how our society works. Under the market forces of industrial capitalism, human labor is chronically undervalued. To put it simply, industry competition is all about making more and better, faster and cheaper. If you operate under this philosophy, it follows that you'd be willing to cut down on as much of the production process as possible without compromising the market value of your end product. Karl Marx had a term called commodity fetishism, which describes the economic relationships of production and exchange as being social relationships that exist among things as opposed to people. When all of the value of a commodity is derived from the worth of the material end product, you inherently diminish the value of the human time and labor involved. AI art only takes this idea to the extreme. Why even bother pretending like any of the creative process is worth anything? And while it seems radical, it's not that shocking when you consider that this is only the latest development in the trends of consumer capitalism. The commodification of labor is a product of industrialization. Today, this way of thinking seems ubiquitous due to the economic dominance of capitalist thought in our global world system. However, there are cultural practices that frame labor very differently. The Ise-Grand Shrine is a Shinto shrine in Japan built 1,500 years ago. It's the oldest standing shrine in Japan, but every 20 years they completely tear down the shrine and rebuild it exactly the same as before. The reason for this has to do with the cycle of renewal. The idea is that you can preserve the essence of a structure by continuously rebuilding it in the exact same state, therefore maintaining it at a consistent level of preservation and ensuring that the methods of building it aren't lost over time. Here, labor is not just the means to an end product, it's a mechanism ingrained into its very being. One could even argue that this method of preservation is more true to the spirit of the original, even when the form itself is not authentic. But what does it really mean to be authentic? We can answer this question in the Anglo-European sense by looking at the history of modern art in the Western world. Let me paint a scene for you. You're in Paris in the year 1785 in a gallery full of paintings from floor to ceiling. There's men and women in powdered wigs gossiping amongst each other, and from the crowd emerges a murmur of scandal. This is the biennial showcase of the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture, but there's an empty spot on the wall because one particular painting is not there. It's late. Weeks late, in fact. And although nobody in the room has seen it yet, everyone's heard of it, because rumors have traveled from Rome, where it was reportedly seen by the Pope. Suddenly, the doors swing open and a group of students come in, carrying the canvas. The gallery installers begin to rearrange the surrounding paintings, much to the outrage of the neighboring artists. There are shouts of protest, but in the end, the space is cleared, and the newly arrived painting is now mounted in the center wall, just above eye level. At this point, an anxious quiet settles in the air. All of the crowd is gathered to see for the first time the Oath of the Herati by Jacques-Louis David. This painting shows three brothers of the Roman Herati family who are pledging to fight a duel against three members of the Curiati in order to avoid war between two city-states. It was a highly controversial painting at the time, in part due to its departure from the original commission, which was intended to urge loyalty to the king during a period of unrest. Instead of creating a purely propagandistic piece, David painted a scene of his own creation, depicting the virtues of three men willing to lay down their lives in service of public duty. Today, the themes in this painting are largely considered among the guiding principles of the French Revolutionary War. This is the legacy of the Oath of the Herati by Jacques-Louis David. But this image on screen right now is not the painting. It's a reproduction by a student, Giraudet. Actually, technically speaking, it's a picture of Giraudet's reproduction. If you want to see the real version of Giraudet's painting, you have to go to the Toledo Museum of Ohio. And if you want to see the real you have to go to the Louvre in Paris. For all of history, having access to paintings was a way of connecting and learning from the past. But at some point, something changed about the way we consume images. The way we perceive art today is radically different from how we would perceive it in the past, in large part due to the invention of the camera, which meant that the same painting could now be seen in two different places at the same time. In the modern day, we don't go to see paintings. Paintings come to us. Think about it, why would you ever go see a painting? Why go see a painting when you could just do this? Really, why would you spend any time in front of a real painting? You've literally seen it before. Walter Benjamin's whole thing was that we live in an age of mechanical reproduction. In the modern age, in large part due to the demands of neoliberal capitalism, our methods of production are so fast and efficient that reproductions of original works of art can become functional stand-ins for the real thing. However, while this means that more people are able to perceive a work of art, Benjamin argues that they're not really engaging with an authentic product. Reproductions lack something that Benjamin calls the aura, which encompasses all of the context with which the original work was meant to be presented, including not only the physical space, but also historical and social context of the time. Traditionally, there were rituals you had to go through in order to see a work of art. Rituals such as traveling across the world and being allowed access into the space in which it's held. These rituals guaranteed a degree of inaccessibility that contributed to the effect of viewing an artwork. However, reproductions bypass these rituals and therefore detaches the object from its aura. So then Duchamp comes and goes, so why does anything matter? It is literally the 1900s, everything is made in a factory, and the vast majority of art consumed are photographic reproductions. We can't pretend like the value of a piece is tied to the physicality anymore because nobody cares about that. Rather, it's the idea that matters. So let's pull a urinal out of the ground and put it in a museum. Sure, there's about 1,000 other urinals pretty much just like it, but this one conveys an idea. The ready-mades of Duchamp are a series of manufactured household objects that he selected and displayed as art pieces. He diminishes importance in both the physical form of the object as well as the labor of production in favor of the concepts conveyed by it. He defines ready-mades as an ordinary object elevated to the dignity of a work of art by the mere choice of an artist. Mere choice of an artist. Following this idea, one could argue that the platform provided by an artist embeds non-fungibility into an easily reproducible object. Now you might ask, what the fuck is non-fungibility? Let's talk about the internet. The internet. Everything is a file, everything is instant, and everything is everywhere. For nearly all of human history, when we thought of a copy, we thought of a tangible product of industrial production. But the information age has given us something new. Digital simulacra. Internet culture during the early 2000s was built around peer-to-peer, which offered the concept of a near infinite number of fungible copies. The first peer-to-peer networks, such as Napster, afforded the replication of files across a network of nodes. Through this act of replication, the same file is able to reside on hundreds of different computers, all of which function as a separate host, meaning any replication of the file could occur from a different origin. Everything transferable on the internet is now fungible, meaning that all commodities traded over the internet are mutually exchangeable through an identical copy. This forms the early idea of the internet as a decentralized network of networks across which information and services could be exchanged in near infinite supply. Benjamin died in 1940 and Duchamp in 1968, several decades before the rapid rise of the internet. We can only imagine how they feel since the way the internet has radically accelerated our means of production. In a lecture on MoMA in 1961, Duchamp said, "I realized very soon the danger of repeating indiscriminately this form of expression and decided to limit the production of ready-mades to a small number yearly. I was aware at that time that for the spectator, even more than for the artist, art is a habit-forming drug, and I wanted to protect my ready-mades against such contamination." By the end of his life, he was wary of something being lost through overconsumption. Many of us can agree that there's something special about something that is rare. On the left is a picture of Duchamp's last piece, called The Illuminating Glass. It's a box with a pinhole, and when you put your face up to it, you see this picture of a woman. In a sense, it doesn't really matter what's in the box. The idea is that using the label of art, he forces you to have a material experience. And some might argue that this was the central theme of his entire career. Ready-mades turned commodifiable property into ideas that embedded them with something special. We've always looked towards art for a vision of our future. And in the information age, we're able to access more art than we ever had in all of human history. And yet we find ourselves overwhelmed. Nothing feels unique anymore. Digital art is easily distributed in abundant supply and yet completely valueless. The novelty of experiencing a piece of art for the first time can be immensely rewarding. However, in the year 2023, many can relate to the feeling that these emotions are only fleeting, causing us to constantly search for new and stronger forms of stimulation. We're addicted to feeling something, and modern-day consumer capitalism is only too happy to supply us with an endless stream of stuff. We feel overwhelmed, depressed, and purposeless. How do we solve this? Blockchain. The blockchain is a ledger of transactions distributed across multiple nodes, which updates and ensures accurate data across all connected nodes through the use of consensus algorithms. Through blockchain, all computers in the network are able to collectively agree if and when a transaction has occurred. Non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, are an attempt to return something that's been lost since the emergence of personal computers, which is the non-fungibility of digital artworks. Because the blockchain is able to prove the consensus that there is one authentic copy, an aura of authenticity is now possible for digital images, because it's now possible to claim that one is the original and all others are copies. I could right-click and save a board ape, but it wouldn't be worth anything, because there would be no proven record of ownership on the blockchain. This is the $69 million Beeple NFT called Everydays, which is the most expensive NFT ever sold. It's basically a collage of images he made for a series called Everyday, where he would publish a different work of art every day. The key word here being published. These are all images that were already posted on his Twitter account for free consumption, now being sold here in a collage framed as an NFT. So how can you actually see Beeple's Everydays? Allegedly, there's some sort of virtual museum being worked on by Metacoven, the owner of the NFT. But surprisingly, I couldn't find any information on it, and it's unclear whether this museum was even built. All I could find was that Metacoven's company, Metaverse, is currently displaying it on their website as like a JPEG with a text description. And Beeple actually opened a gallery this year where you can visit in person and see Everydays printed out on a canvas. But in both Metaverse's website and Beeple's gallery, you're not really seeing the original artwork. Not technically, at least, because the original was sold on OpenSea and remains there to this day. Let's look at the metadata. To put it simply, an NFT consists of a link stored on the blockchain. When you look up the token ID on Etherscan, you can actually find the smart contract for the transaction and the exact URL that references the image. This is where the URL of Beeple's Everydays takes you. This URL is the location of the original artwork. Nothing else, not even the preview image on OpenSea, is the real NFT. Everything else, including the way most people have seen this image, which is probably just looking it up on Google Images or something, are technically speaking no more than reproductions of the real thing. The question now is, does this matter? One could argue that if you can right-click and save a copy that is indistinguishable from the original, it doesn't even matter whether you have an authentic original, because your copy is just as good. However, in the context of the fine arts market, authenticity actually matters a lot. In fact, it's almost all that matters. While creators like musicians and writers hope to sell as many copies of their work as possible, fine artists don't really make money off of copies of their work. In fact, the scarcity of their authentic work is what drives up the price. Therefore, fine artists depend almost entirely on a single first sale. Studies have shown that 99.8% of artists do not have a significant resale market, meaning that just a few elite artists account for the vast majority of money in this market. Furthermore, because authenticity is so important in the fine arts, it doesn't really hurt these elite artists when reproductions are in need of their work. The Rauschenberg Foundation allows for the public use and reproduction of Rauschenberg's copyrighted artworks, and while it's been estimated that this has caused them to undergo approximately $10 grand in annual profit, Karl Niebuhr was a master art collector who after World War II was charged with the crime of selling an authentic Vermeer painting to Nazis. In order to prove that it was fake, he reproduced under supervision his last Vermeer fortune. After which he said, "Yesterday this picture was worth millions. Experts and art lovers from all over the world came to see it. Today it's worth nothing, and nobody would even cross the road to see it for free. But the picture hasn't changed. What's different? The difference is that it's not authentic. The norm of authenticity is so strong that the labor, craft, and process behind creating a picture is completely irrelevant if it's not the original copy authored by the artist." Now, there is such thing as an authentic reproduction. Here we have a series of artworks, each considered an authentic piece. On the far left is a statue of Eros that is sculpted across Achilles in the 4th century. Next to it is a photograph by the artist Edward Weston modeled after the sculpture. The one after that is a photograph of Edward Weston's photograph by photographer Sherry Levine, titled After Edward Weston. And then besides that, we have a drawing by the artist Amy Adler, titled After Sherry Levine. What's going on here? It's concepts. Each reproduction, although nearly identical in form, each presents itself as a new idea by an established artist. As long as the work can be traced back to an original creation by an artist of an original idea, it doesn't really matter how derivative it is of previous works. This is the unspoken contract between visual artists and art collectors. So this results in an environment where you can literally sell anything and nobody stops you. For example, the $120,000 banana tube tool by artist Maurizio Catali. Legal scholar and conceptual artist Brian L. Fry draws a parallel between NFTs and conceptual art, in the sense that when you invest in an NFT or a piece of conceptual art, you're not really getting any material product in return except for the public consensus that you've invested in something valuable. When you buy a piece of conceptual art, all you get is public recognition of ownership. And when you buy an NFT, all you get is consensus through the blockchain that you own an NFT. It doesn't really even matter if the letter of the law acknowledges that you own it, because as long as society itself recognizes you as the owner, then your purchase has market value. NFTs seem to take the concept of authenticity to an extreme. The blockchain produces artificial scarcity of authentic, non-fungible tokens. However, there's actually no guaranteed relationship between the NFT and the digital artwork it's attached to. The blockchain can authenticate without a doubt that the transaction occurred, but it can't prove anything about the authenticity of what you're buying, nor make any promises that the seller had any rights to sell it to you in the first place. What it does do is it goes through the mechanics of certification without authenticating anything besides the fact that you bought an NFT of something. It's a reduction of the art trade down to only the market transaction of an authenticated commodity. Anyways, all of this is a very Western way of evaluating works of art. The cosmology of blockchain is grounded in fundamentally Western ideas of time, reproductions, and ownership. But this same logic is not necessarily universally at play. There's one thing we haven't discussed yet, which is the labor. We've been talking about concepts and value and authenticity, but very little about the actual act of painting. There's a village in Shenzhen called Dafenchun that at one point produced 60% of the world's oil paintings. It's a specialized industrial community where trained painters own workshops dedicated to the mass production of replicas of famous paintings that are then shipped around the globe and sold by souvenir shops for about 40 times the price paid to the artist. However, even then, the cost of these replicas is only a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the price of the original artwork, even when the materials, techniques, and style are identical. Some of these artists spent weeks, even months, replicating the same painting hundreds of times. Over time, they develop a deep understanding of how to copy every detail. Meanwhile, refers to the practice of copying a work of art to study the techniques and learn from the psychology of the painting process. Copying is a way of exploring the logic and patterns behind image making. In addition, it's a way of exploring the mental processes and emotional state of an artist. Even in an age where we can effortlessly reproduce an image, there is still creative expression found in the manual labor of hand copying a painting. Even replication paintings are labor-intensive creative endeavors, and yet the end products are only seen as cheap imitations. In fact, 21st century China has developed a reputation for the production of cheap imitation term that refers to Chinese counterfeit goods, usually in imitation of Western luxury products such as cell phones and designer fashion. You've probably seen these products before, in online images or in public stands that are set on the street. And in the vast majority of these products, you'll be able to find a label claiming "Made in China." Factories in China are responsible for approximately 20% of the world's manufacturing output. With a population of 1.4 billion, China is by far the largest global labor force. It's also one of the biggest luxury markets in the world, with enough domestic demand to support an entire underground marketplace around domestically produced reproductions of foreign goods. This is a picture of local commercial city in Shenzhen. It's a massive shopping mall with a reputation for high-quality counterfeit goods at low prices. They even have tailors who will custom-make clothing based off of designs found in luxury magazines. And although many of the clothes that people pay a premium price for in the West are in fact made by workers in China, these shops can sell these products at a fraction of the price. When it comes to luxury consumer goods, the most common factor when making a purchasing decision is not necessarily the quality of the product, but the reputation. For those hoping to climb the social ladder, the ownership of luxury products represent membership among the elite. Certain brand logos are so famous that they are instantly recognizable and ubiquitous indication of class status. The product sold under a reputable brand will always possess a higher market value than the nearly identical product sold as a blatant imitation. Shenjai products don't necessarily present themselves as an authentic product. Instead, they offer a counter-movement against the dominance of Western commodities by using the appearance of luxury to sell a domestically produced product. Shenjai products demonstrate an ease with fungibility and a blurring of lines between copies and originals. Korean scholar Byung-Chun Hall draws a connection between the Shenjai movement and notions of authenticity in Chinese culture. Western authenticity is tied to the singular physical origin of an object. In Western paintings, the signature is evidence of the artist's hand, and the act of signing a painting signifies the end of the creative process. When you sign a painting, you have completed it, and therefore something original is born. No matter how much the painting is transferred over time and space, its essence is forever tied to its origin. The only thing a buyer obtains is ownership. After a painting has been signed, any alteration in its form is considered destructive to this essence. However, traditional Chinese paintings treat signatures very differently. In ancient times, scholar officials would study calligraphy, poetry, and painting, and these skills could combine themselves on the same canvas. As a painting is passed as a gift or purchase, different owners could add their own stamps and inscriptions, which then became part of the composition. These inscriptions can be considered a continuation of the creative process as opposed to proof of one authentic origin. Because the process of painting never officially ends, there is never a single point at which the image becomes or ceases to be an original. There was a controversy a few years back when the Hamburg Museum received fake terracotta warriors. Basically, the museum would paint newly manufactured terracotta warriors under the pretense that they were the authentic thing. Where it gets complicated is that we actually know how the terracotta warriors are made. They're made with molds, and the thing with molds is that it's a method of mass production. And you can keep making them as long as you have the original thing. Even the original terracotta warriors don't necessarily have an authentic origin. They're more like ready-made objects. This brings us to a key point. Even if you make more terracotta warriors with the same materials and methods, they will never have the essence of authenticity that museums value. No matter how indistinguishable a reproduction is from the original, it would always be worth almost nothing in comparison. We don't judge authenticity by either the quality of labor involved or the accuracy of the form of the end product. We judge it by where the product came from and who is making it. The technical knowledge behind it is only a means to an end. That's why you can spend hours of labor dedicated to learning every detail of famous paintings, creating replications that are functionally indistinguishable from the original, and yet never achieve anywhere near the money or acclaim of the original artist. The Anglo-Eurocentric conception of art differentiates between the artist and the craftsman. The artist is someone who is either well-educated or naturally talented, who is in a unique position to summon creative ideas, while the craftsman is someone whose role basically sums down to being able to follow instructions really well. While this is an over-reductive view of how the creative process works, this differentiation Examples of Orientalism in media simultaneously depict the East as both industrially advanced and inhuman. Today, Chinese factories are globally infamous for low wages and dehumanizing labor practices. China's reputation as a world hub for cheap labor also contributes to stereotypes of the Chinese labor force as mindless robotic workers. However, it would simply be inaccurate to describe these reproduction painters as thoughtless craftsmen. Their paintings are products of emotional investment. Over time, they probably even know more about these paintings than the original artist. There's a lot you can learn from a painting. Within a single canvas contains the history of a million tiny decisions an artist has made in order to capture the complexities of their thoughts. The stillness of a painting is a representation of a single moment. To understand a painting completely involves studying not only the craft and technique, but also the emotional state of the artist at the time of creation. The manual labor of painting is an expression of deep human emotion. This is a picture of the painting Differently Still by visual artist Bruno Cunha. When you first look at this painting, you may struggle to make sense of the colors and patterns. However, you could easily imagine someone studying every brushstroke and replicating it from scratch. When asked about the process behind his painting, this is what he said. If someone were to copy me stroke for stroke, I feel like they'd be missing out on the whole experience. Creating images I like is only a byproduct of the end goal. I'm really interested in responding to materials in real time, thinking on my feet, and focusing all my energy on the present moment. It's a lot like playing jazz. It's nothing but concentration and energy. Really having a dialogue with someone without any words and trying to build a plane while it's midair. Someone would be a lot better off putting themselves in a room with painting materials and causing pure chaos than trying to study my work verbatim. Beautiful, right? But who fucking cares? Art isn't about beauty. It's about market value. It's always been about market value. Sometimes you hear snobby critics go like, oh, art isn't even about art anymore. It's all about money. But it's always been about money. Money is value. People buy paintings that are priced based off public consensus of cultural and aesthetic values.
What is your job title?
Gallery administrator and art handler.
Okay, so you know how like shit works.
Sorta. I have like a little bit of a peek at how shit works.
What decides if like an artwork that enters the gallery is like valuable?
Say it's probably name and notoriety, and then if it's signed or unsigned, and if it's original or a print. Print being an edition of like say 500 of the same piece. Basically, you're paying for like this guy, like say Andy Warhol. You have an idea of this guy in your head, and the idea is that oh my god, his pencil touched that piece of canvas, and that's as good as having his original work that he painted or screen printed or whatever himself. There's another thing in our gallery. We sell Dali unsigned prints from a series that he did of the Divine Comedy. Each verse of the Divine Comedy or whatever you call it is like he made like a watercolor or something. But then he made hella prints of it. And none of those prints were signed. There's not one, not even the originals that are signed. My gallery bought up as many as they could and split them into frames. So each individual piece is like framed now, and we just sell those like hotcakes, like $400 a pop. It's like the cheapest thing that we sell. It's unsigned and there's like 800 of each of them. And it's like 100 different works, and there's 800 of each of those 100 works. All of our galleries, except for the one that I work at, like all the other locations, they're in malls. It's super weird. Like, if you go to the mall in Irvine, one of our locations is there. Just in a shopping mall, like next to H&M or whatever. In the US, state-funded arts is fucking, you know what I mean? It's depressing. Someone said that the Soviet realism movement, they had more freedom in their work than the US does. If we're speaking in the US under capitalism the way it is, I think the market dictates what art is. Like, everyone's gonna want the cute little Keith Haring on a Uniqlo shirt. You know what I mean? Everyone's gonna want a poster of Andy Warhol's print of Mao. You know what I mean? For like no reason other than, oh my god, I heard it was a big thing. You know? And those artists that are like notorious, they just decided one day, like when they were drinking or whatever, they wanted to make this, and it'd be funny. And they made like 6 different colors of like a print of Mao, and then now it's like a Campbell soup. Oh my god, it's such a good fucking it's a commentary on society and like mechanical reproduction. It's bro was in the soup aisle and he's like, this is beautiful. People buy art speculatively. They buy art because they want to sell the art later for more money. They buy art because they want to give it to their kids and say, look what daddy got you. and look how it sets you up for life. It's investment in the mystique of an artist's name. At this point, if I like this Picasso, I can ask someone on AliExpress to print it on a canvas for me, and like it's indistinguishable to me in my own. I'm trying to think of an artist that I would actually care about the originality of, but I think like if I don't know the artist personally, I don't think it matters. And if it's just for the aesthetic, I would just get something that's indistinguishable from it. Maybe it even makes it better for me, like some Chinese fucker printed this for however much money.
Why would that make you feel better?
Because I'm not dealing with the bullshit fake art market that pushes the prices up for speculative sake. Intrinsic value in the labor of making art. This brings up thoughts of those artists that have a studio team that do the art for them and they just direct them. They say, I need you to paint like this, and they paint like that all day, and then they sell it as their work because they directed it, right? And those people get paid a wage for painting it. Their job is to paint. I think Warhol did that. I think like everyone that makes edition prints of their work does that. So that's a different labor. It's not the artist labor. So I guess the intrinsic value is in a relationship with the laborer that made the art.
What about the album art?
Call me out, you. Yeah, it's AI. Yeah. It was more of like an exploring what it can do thing, and also because I was too lazy to go out and shoot a film picture of an alignment shop, but that's what I wanted for the cover. I wanted it to be like purple toned, like 1970s, like rain just happened. Like I put this all in the prompt because I could have gone and shot a photo similar to that, but I can't access the past. I can only kind of make it look like the past. So I wanted to play with a tool that did that. And it's also sort of like, it's a throwaway, so I just put a throwaway art on it, you know what I mean? No, I don't think the image should be worth anything because there was like 6 editions of it that happened in the process, and I asked them to like refine until like it got to a point where like, the colors worked with what I was going for. It was like legible, you can kind of see what it was. When you're physically creating art, you have impulses. You don't think of the exact prompt in your head. Like you can't create the same work from the impulses that you can translating those impulses into something that creates a satisfactory output from a prompt. Prompts and impulses to create are different things, and I think there will be something lost if we move to only prompt-based art. Maybe Neuralink will solve this. I don't know. I don't have high hopes for it.
One could view the rise of AI art as a simultaneous reversal and continuation of the precedents set by NFTs. While NFTs reduce human labor to a commodity, AI art is an attempt at automating human labor, if not completely cutting it from the equation. But I think that AI art is really about an existential question. This is Sam Altman talking about his thoughts on the future of artificial intelligence. This technological revolution is unstoppable, and a recursive loop of innovation as these smart machines themselves help us make smarter machines will accelerate the revolution's pace. 3 crucial consequences follow. This revolution will create phenomenal wealth. The price of many kinds of labor, which drives the cost of goods and services, will fall towards zero when sufficiently powered AI joins the workforce. The world will change so rapidly and drastically that an equally drastic change in policy will be needed to distribute this wealth and enable more people to pursue the life they want. If we get both of these right, we can improve the standard of living for people more than we ever have before. When you hear techno-libertarian types talk about this technology, it really seems like they truly believe they're going to save the world. It almost seems like they live in another planet because their hopes and dreams are so far beyond our current reality. They have this childlike hope for humanity that is simultaneously completely out of touch, but also kind of beautiful. Like, they think we are so close to destroying everything that's wrong with the world. And I think the fact that people are looking so far away for the answers shows that they're really fed up with what we have now. And I don't think they're the only ones who feel that way. They're just the ones who truly think that utopia is in reach. Earlier, we discussed the rise of AI art as a symptom of the devaluation of labor. However, our discomfort with that devaluation ultimately stems from an understanding of ourselves as participants within capitalism. We inherently judge our self-worth by our ability to generate capital through our labor, and when that labor is no longer rewarded by the market, we feel purposeless. We struggle to see the value in our work outside of capitalism, as our hopes and dreams tend to be tied to conceptions of success from a capitalist framework. It would be over-reductive to say that artists create only for the sake of gaining economic or social capital. Imagine a future where artificial intelligence is able to replace all human labor required for society to not only function, but flourish. I'm not saying this is what will happen. I'm just asking for you to imagine what it would be like if there was literally no more need for anyone to do anything. Imagine a future where labor is valueless. What will we do with ourselves then?
Having studied art history, it's like an artist is someone who sells you shit, sells you an idea, sells you their experience in life, right?
Right.
I guess I would consider myself an artist in the sense that I try to live in a way that makes me feel like, I don't know, like something is happening that's greater than me, I guess. I don't know. Living a life and not recording it, or recording some of it that you feel is like sellable, whatever, you know what I mean? There's a way to explain it. I guess what I'm hoping for as an artist is to be able to live my life in a way that's like that, where you're able to retain some private corner of your world where only you can have those thoughts. You're not selling them, not sharing them, but it enables you to also shit out things that are sellable to make a living. But that's not the art. The art is what you do, and you're not selling.